that I was so afraid to do anything by myself. I had this loss of naivety and hardening of my heart is what it felt like. Sort of questioning the relationship I was in, questioning... Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about living on my own. I have been living on my own for about 2 years now or so. I was in a very, very long-term relationship that ended in a real crazy way in the middle of the pandemic, and that did a number on me for so many reasons. So I want to talk about living on my own. I had some questions on Instagram. I've talked about it on my podcast, things like that. So I figured, why don't I do my makeup and we can just chat. I'm thinking about making this a new series. I don't have a name for it or anything like that, but you know, there's a lot of topics that I want to cover that I don't really get the chance to. And if you follow my podcast, I've been talking a lot more about sort of personal things, I guess, like my breakup or mental health, living on my own, dating, relationships, all that kind of stuff. I've been talking a lot about it on my podcast, but I want to talk about it more here. And the thing is, and there's a reason that I haven't talked about it, and it's because, guys, I'm traumatized. If I have to be completely honest with you, I don't know how other YouTubers go through breakups or divorces and then hop on and make a video, you know, called I'm divorced, we broke up, whatever, like the week of. I don't know how they do it, and this is no shade to them. Like, everybody copes differently, and I can't tell you how many times that I've wanted to talk about it, or I've almost talked about it, or tweeted something and then, you know, backed off on saying what I wanted to say. And it's a weird world. You know, like any topics that you want me to talk about, let me know down below, because I want to do like definitely at least once a month, sit down, chat, hang out, and just sort of reconnect. But the living alone part was something that sort of came after the breakup, where I sort of realized, oh my god, this is my apartment now. This is my house. And in some ways that was really great, and in some ways it was really hard. I'm from Newfoundland, which is like an island on the east coast of Canada. It's an island of about 500,000 people, so not... Listen, we had a TikTok that from Pretty Blunt that did really well. Got a couple of 100,000 views, and I'm talking about Newfoundland. I'm like, it's a small island. Everyone's like, it's not a small island. I know, okay? Geographically, it's a massive island. It takes 9 hours to drive across. But when somewhere has a population of 500,000... Excuse me? Sephora? When somewhere has a population of 500,000, I'm gonna say that it's a small island, like geographically. Like, people love... It's like people, oh my god, people spend all day waiting for someone to say something online so that they can like get a little twinge in their panties and correct you. It's so weird. It's like, have you ever heard of nuance once in your life? Anyways, I moved to Toronto when I was about in my mid-20s with my ex. So I grew up in Newfoundland. It's a small place, and it was a great place to grow up. I love being from there. I think it's such a unique place. I recommend everybody visit, but it's just not somewhere that I want to live. So I definitely always wanted to leave, and I was never able to do it on my own. And I have to admit, like, a lot of problems that have arisen, have come up in my life have been due to the fact that I was so afraid to do anything by myself. I never had the, not that like I wasn't encouraged in my family in any means, like I was told that I could do anything and all of that, but I just don't think I had a lot of examples of like, I guess, specific encouragement. Like, we just get comfortable in our lives, right? And other people around us are comfortable, and there's just certain things that you don't know until you don't know. There's a naivety and a vulnerability to a certain age, and it's not even necessarily age related. It could be due to the place you grow up in. Like, you know, I know growing up in Newfoundland, I was sheltered to so many different things in terms of anything really, in terms of diversity, but it doesn't even mean racially diverse, but definitely racially diverse. But it could mean, you know, I wasn't exposed to people of a lot of different cultures, religions, even brackets of wealth. Like, moving to Toronto, like, I just have discovered so much. So I just didn't make that move until I had a partner to do so with. And then in moving to Toronto, I was in a very different place in terms of where I was at. Like when I was living in Newfoundland at the time, right before I left, I was a radio show host, and I really liked that job, but I still felt very unfulfilled, and that was when I kind of realized, okay, Newfoundland is not for me. Because this is like the best suited job I could have, and I'm still kind of unhappy. So this is partially life story, partially living on my own. Because I think all of this context, I think gives you just a better picture of me and gives you some insight into why I might feel particular ways. But all of this to say that when I moved here, it was very much me and him and my cat, you know, and I was focused on that. I was working in marketing, and I worked in that for about a year until I then quit my job to do YouTube full time. But for the first year that I was living here in Toronto, I wasn't out making friends, joining activities or anything like that. And I was coming from a world too where, you know, growing up in Newfoundland, your friends are kind of prescribed to you almost, and I feel like that's almost most childhood or adolescent friends anyways, because whoever you're going to school with, whoever you grew up next to, that's who becomes your friends. And it also kind of became complicated for me because, you know, all of my friends were friends from school, but even before I left Newfoundland, I was starting to feel that sort of divide come of like, okay, we're all friends because, you know, we love each other, but we don't have all the same interests and activities. You know, I had friends who were a little bit more into arts and artistic stuff and like going to music shows and stuff, and that was never my thing. So that made me feel, you know, a little bit like an outsider in a place where I already felt like an outsider because, surprise, I'm Black and almost nobody else is there, right? So it was just like very interesting sort of dynamic and relationship that I have with Newfoundland, and I felt pretty encouraged to leave to come to a city that felt really diverse. But I did not work on building any community here. I was so hyper focused on work and my partner, basically. That's all that mattered to me. And you know, it's one of those things that in hindsight, when you hear everybody say over and over and over again, keep your friends around, keep your friends around, keep your friends around, build community even when, you know, you have a partner, because it's always that joke of like, you know, my boyfriend or my partner, whoever is my best friend, and like that's very, very important. But, you know, we also know as adults that we can have multiple best friends, and I think it's really important because, you know, the world was set up in a patriarchal way in which women had no choice but to marry a man to survive, essentially, because we couldn't have bank accounts or jobs. And now we don't live in that world anymore. We don't have to do that. We don't need to depend on our partners in the same way. And I think we shouldn't be depending on our partners in that way for not just financially, but mentally, for all kinds of stimulation, you know. Well, not all kinds of stimulation. Some that should remain between you and your partner, unless you've got some kind of an agreement, but that's a video for another day. But I think the thing is like I really did, I had this sort of false sense of security in terms of friendships here because I came into this space and there was all these other beauty bloggers and stuff like that. Like I made sort of instant friends with people, but it was almost more like colleagues. Like some I was very close with when I first moved here, of course, and it just sort of has been a natural drift. But I didn't do a great job in solidifying any real friendships that were like, you know, I have lots of people I can go to dinner with, lots of people I can, you know, do whatever and say hi to at beauty events, but I'm like, where are my friends that like they can just come over and I don't have to get dressed, I don't have to clean up my apartment, I don't need to go to dinner, we can just come here and sit and rot together, take a nap together. Like I miss that type of friendship. And I realized when we broke up and I was in the middle of a pandemic, I had nobody. And I cannot tell you how traumatizing that was. And because of certain things in my family dynamic, this is just like extra triggering for me. And when I say like I had nobody, like I don't want to discredit, I have friends, I have people in my life, absolutely, but I didn't have anybody that could come be here with me physically. And that is what really, really hurt. And I know that a lot of people felt such isolation just during the pandemic in general. Like I started off the pandemic with a boyfriend and, you know, at the time was quite excited to spend this time together and all of that and you know, naively, whatever. But I think the thing is that this physical isolation was so jarring to me because it was new. it was during a time where, and I mean, not that we're out of the pandemic by any means now, but, you know, we're watching horrible things happen around us and seeing how, you know, feeling like just watching humanity fall apart. And then I'm also going through the biggest heartbreak of my life, all happening simultaneously. So when it comes to like living in this space, and I'm still here now, we spent 6 years together in this apartment. So then to be in this apartment felt like I was living in a haunted house. I can't like, so it was just such a complicated time, because this is kind of not exactly turning out to be the video that I wanted it to be. I wanted to give you advice on living on your own, but I think that's going to be coming next, because I'm just kind of giving you my life story. And let me know if this is interesting or at all helpful. I will or won't do this again. But I think it's important to see people going through things, and I think it's just really hilarious when people message me, and I don't get it very often, because I don't think I make my life to look anything good. Like, obviously, of course, I'm sitting here surrounded by thousands of dollars worth of makeup and stuff. Like, I'm not going to deny that, but I would have given all of this away to have any moment of peace in 2020, you know? So... but like, you know, I recognize I have lots of privileges due to my job, and that honestly is what kind of made it suck, because there were so many times where I was like, I am being so ungrateful that I have this job and I have this and that, and, you know, the fact that, yes, sure, my apartment feels like a haunted house right now because it's full of some of the most traumatizing memories I have, but I have a house. Some people don't even have a house, you know, so I was sort of like invalidating myself so much, and I know that I would have never done that to a friend, right? So I think like dealing with that, all of this coming post breakup, in addition to, because of my breakup, it really felt like, and if anybody has gone through anything any bit traumatizing, doesn't need to be breakup, whatever it is, I had this loss of innocence and this loss of naivety where the world was different for me. It was already starting to feel different. I was starting to feel this thing kind of bubble up in myself as well, of being like, I'm not being myself, sort of questioning the relationship I was in, questioning different things. And this was when I realized, like, people are bad. Some people are bad. And I literally couldn't listen to true crime podcasts for probably a year, because I spent so much time being like, listening to this, being like, how don't you know? How don't people know? Like, how don't you know? How don't you know? Why would she stay? Why would you? And until you go through something of yourself, or, you know, perhaps there's lots of people, I know there's lots of people who are, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm being judgmental to victims of crimes here, guys, okay? But what I am saying is that, like, I just had a naivety to the world. And I really thought that people were out here trying to do their best and trying to be honest. And, you know, we've seen what's happening in the beauty community at this very moment, and we know that people aren't doing that. And it's so frustrating. And you know, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been trying to be incredibly honest and realistic and not oversell and make people seem like they need to buy things, and doing these incredible before and afters where people are probably lying in the first place and have been for a long, long time, guys. I've seen mascara, I've seen false lashes in Instagram ads long before this of some of my colleagues, okay? So there's shitty people out there. And what I have learned so much is that I need to do a better job surrounding myself with good people, because the people that you surround yourself with are who shapes your life. And I chose to shape my life with somebody who shaped it in a way, and I'm absolutely was a participant in this as well, okay? Like, I'm not putting all my blame on anybody here, but I was with someone who shaped my world in a particular way that I would have never shaped it, because it was not a collaborative effort by any means, and even if it was, I didn't know what I wanted at the time because I was so young when I got in that relationship. So I'm just saying that it's like I had this loss of naivety and this hardening of my heart is what it felt like. And you know, when you go through something like that, you do grieve. I grieved the person, I grieved the relationship, I grieved the like just like what I thought of people in general and what I realized people are capable of. It was just really hard. It was really, really hard. And then it was really hard to sit around, you know, the very apartment that we had lived in together and try and rebuild it. And what was even wilder was what people were doing because I have this public following. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm getting a new couch. People are like, where's your boyfriend? And I'm like, guys, like I started my YouTube channel never expecting it to be anything. I put him on my YouTube channel expecting to be with him for the rest of my life, being so naive, and I never ever thought about the consequences of this, about it ending or ending in this way, or about people asking me questions. Like, I know people are like, well, you put it out there, I'm like, sure, yeah, okay, I get it. If you want to have that stance, that's fine. But it was just very, very weird to experience, and it felt so invasive because I was so not ready, and I was so heartbroken. And I didn't want to seem like, oh, look, I've made my life look this particular way, of how good I've made my life, look. And now I'm coming to you guys being like, actually, it wasn't that way. You know? And I'm like, I'm not a liar. I just didn't know any better. And I have to give myself that little bit of like compassion. And it was, you know, definitely a learning experience. The universe was like, you're gonna learn. And I did. And, you know, everybody takes their time and their own amount of time to get through things, to work through things. Everybody does it their own way, and it was just for me very complicated because my job is sharing my life, and then I was like, I don't even know what's going on in my own life right now, so how am I supposed to hop online, talk about this freaking eyeshadow palette when I just had a panic attack and I'm barely able to make it through the day, you know? So it was just a very, very weird and then sort of extra traumatizing time for me because I love what I do for work so much, but because I was having to force myself to be on camera and like pretend to be happy, it was just like a really weird thing because I really do try to be as authentic as possible, and the only times that I'm not 100% saying what's going on in my head is because it's vulnerable, and the internet will take you and spin it in any which way that it can, and I'm not stable enough for that. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'm not in a place where I want to take that on, and this is something that is so important to me and so special that I just wanted to be careful, and I don't want to come off like I'm spiteful or anything like that. Well, I am a little spiteful. I am a little petty, but like I didn't want to, like, you know, I'm just saying I'm not above a little pettiness here and there. Team petty. But I'm just, you know, it's just a very complicated time, and everybody sort of approaches being an influencer differently. And for me, I'm like, in the same way that when I worked in radio, when I worked in car sales, I'm like, I have to look at myself at the end of the day. I have to look at my friends at the end of the day. I have to look at my family at the end of the day. I can't just be putting anything on the internet. I can't. And for myself too, I don't know where the world of influencing is going to go. I don't want to get, you know, put stuff out there that you can't take back, because there's things that I would have said in 2020 that I don't stand by now, or that I've processed, and I wanted to come to you with information in a reflective way and not a reactive way, because I think that's a problem in a lot of relationships too, is we react before we really, you know, go through these things with people, and we take everything so personally. And I think the difference is when people can say like, oh, you take everything so personally, blah blah blah, it's like we need to find the balance of like, yeah, I don't take it personally what you've done, but it does change my relationship with you, right? Like, I see that this has nothing to do with me because you're projecting, you're doing this, you're treating me horribly for no reason, no apparent reason. It's just that, okay, well, you don't have the same access to me anymore, right? But I just want to share these things because I know that life is hard, and it's hard for me too. But it's also hard for me to talk about it because I don't want to come off sounding like, you know, just a privileged influencer and people are like, wham, we don't care about your problems. But at the same time, I have people telling me, you know, your life is so perfect, and I want to show people that it's not, and that everybody goes through these things, that there's, you know, people who will love and care about you, and sometimes, unfortunately, you have to lead the pack on that. and do the loving care for yourself and treat yourself like your best friend. That's the ideology that's going through my mind all the time. Treat myself like I'm my best friend, treat myself like I'm the love of my life. And I don't always. Sometimes I'm a bad girlfriend to myself, but other times I'm the best girlfriend. And I think it's just really, really important to know that everybody is going through things that make it hard. Everybody has a history that contributes to their present. And I'm currently just trying to make sure that my history, things that have happened in my past, don't interfere too much with my future. And I do that via therapy, friends, work on my own, and dumping it all out here on YouTube. So hopefully you found this any bit interesting. I don't know. You let me know. But I want to open up, I want to share, and I would love to hear any questions you have, comments, what other topics you would like me to talk about, if you enjoy this type of sort of rambly style of video, or as well if you want to, like, you know, write in your story kind of vibe. I would love that, and to be able to talk about different things that are going on in our lives. I think it's important, and I think that I've built a really great community here above all else. There's a lot of shit that goes on in the beauty community, and I feel like you guys are, you know, have your blinders onto it in some ways, and it is really, really nice, because for me, I feel sometimes like I walk into this space and I'm like, why is, like, everybody says they hate drama, and I don't believe them for a second, because if they did, we wouldn't be paying any attention to all of these things, and we'd just be talking about, you know, lipstick or whatever it is. So anyways, that is my rant, trauma dump for the day. Hope this was insightful. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!